Welcome to another episode of Gov2 TV. I'm your host, Walter Schwabe. It's wonderful to be back in the studio after a short summer hiatus. We welcome our viewers from around the world who are tuning in to see and listen to my very special guest today. Today we're joined via Skype out of Victoria, British Columbia, the Honourable Stephanie Cadieux, who's the Minister of Labour, Citizens Services and Open Government. Welcome, Minister. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Walter.
So, Minister, let's get right into it because time is of the essence, and I know that you have a busy schedule. I'd like to start by asking you the question, what does being responsible for open government, for the government of British Columbia, mean to you?
Well, when Premier Clark asked me to take on this portfolio and put open government in the title of my ministry, I think I accepted with excitement and also a little apprehension, because to me this is about launching a new direction for government and leading within our government an understanding that open government is the new direction. It is the way of the future, and it's a new way of doing business. It's a new way of engaging with citizens and really looking at collaboration and transparency as we go forward.
So when we talk about a new way of doing business, I've heard others in government say, you know, government is inherently supposed to be, and it is to some degree already open, right? Various governments, regardless of the three levels we're thinking about, they post information in PDF format and they post information on their websites and so on. And it seems like, you know, various governments will launch a website per initiative almost. So let's talk about what does that mean in terms of it's a new way of doing business specifically. What can you give us an example for those folks who are not in the open government space every day? What does that mean?
Well, I think it's about taking a new look at everything we do, starting with government websites. And instead of our website being a place where we post news releases and photographs and make you search high and low for the information that you need and forms that you need to fill out, instead we're taking a really citizen-centric approach to our website, and we've launched a new site that does that and focuses on the citizen, what the citizen coming to a government website is most likely looking for, and trying to make it as easy as possible for you to find that information quickly, being really respectful of citizens' time, and understanding that citizens, when they come to see government, speak a different language than government is used to. We're used to our acronyms. Citizens are not. So I think it's looking at being more open in that perspective, but it's also at changing the way we do business and engaging with citizens in a different way. Our premier's launched an initiative to hold open town halls, where monthly she will hold an open town hall, talk about issues, have feedback right there live from constituents, from citizens in the province, talking about the issues that matter to them and asking for their feedback on potential policy initiatives and so on. So I think it's really about all of the opportunities that we have to do business differently.
So the website you're referring to, is that openinfo.gov.bc.ca?
No, that is our regular gov.bc.ca website. So that's our homepage. Mm-hmm. But as a part of the launch of that website and open government in British Columbia, we also launched two other sites, which are obviously accessible directly from that site. But we launched openinfo.gov.bc.ca and data.gov.bc.ca. Sorry, right. They're hard to remember off by heart.
No,
and so Open Info is where we're going to be posting all Freedom of Information requests, and also regularly on a monthly basis posting ministers and deputy ministers' travel expenses, which is one of the most frequently requested pieces of information in government.
I think we can bring that up, Minister, while we're talking about it.
Sure.
We can bring up Open Info. and hopefully get that up on the screen as we talk about it. What I find fascinating about the change, and I watched a video from Premier Christy Clark about the changes that you were making on the main website with respect to the interesting way while you're organizing. In the tech sector, we'd call it probably taxonomy, which is how you organize information on the website. And what I like about it is the simplicity of it. Interestingly, in our own province here in Alberta, and in, even if at the federal level in Canada, and I'm sure in many other countries, there's this effort to template websites and keep them cohesive, but at the same time, there's such a myriad of websites out there that you get lost really quickly, especially if you're not overly technically savvy, and there still is a digital divide out there. So, simplifying, just being able to find what's important to citizens every day is a major step when you think about it. Open info and the data site where your data catalog is, separating those two is also an interesting step. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you wanted to make that separation there happen?
Well, I think part of the reason for that, from my perspective, is that it's different. Open data is data that government holds that can be repurposed and used in different ways. Information is different. It's just that it's what happened. It's the advice or the information around a specific issue or around a specific communication. There's no short of interest's sake, there's no way to use that information in another way. The open data is different, and I think there's a need to separate the two for that purpose alone. The open data site, we wanted to really create a community around open data. We wanted to have a site where folks could come, they could share, they could tell us what they're finding, how they're using the data. They could interact with other users of the data, mash it up again in another way, find things that perhaps aren't there, and tell us what we need to include, what isn't there yet, what would they like to see. So we wanted to create a real community feel around that, and that's, I think, why we wanted to create it in its own separate space.
Well, creating a community is one of the most difficult things you can possibly do online, as anyone in the digital strategy business will tell you. But let's shift the discussion internally now. Up to this point, we've talked a little bit about what citizens can expect from your first few moves in this regard. Let's talk internally. How has this move into open government impacted your internal government culture?
Well, I think, as with any change or anything new, there's always some apprehension. And I think part of that is that people don't necessarily all understand it internally either. We're learning, a lot of us, in this process. People, are comfortable with the way they do business. They're comfortable with the processes, and this is a shift. But I think there's also a lot of excitement building about it. I think there's a lot of opportunity that people can see for how this is going to give us an opportunity to make better decisions, to find new and innovative solutions to issues facing the province. So I think there's a lot of excitement building, and it's just a matter of time before we can educate all of our public servants about how best to help engage in this process, and how they can, in their jobs, add to what we're doing in open government.
So what you're saying there is that if there was any resistance to what this portfolio might represent in terms of how business is done within your government, what you're saying is the key to that is going to be education towards, in fact, down in the U.S., it's been termed techno ignorance, if you will, and that's not to be a disparaging mark. It's just the thing that if it doesn't touch my daily routine, I'm not really going to delve into it because I'm already overworked, so I'm not going to look into it. And maybe I don't know what Google Plus is, or I don't know what Skype is because I don't use it every day. It's not because of any other reason, really. So are you saying then that there's some sort of internal training or informational sessions that are going on within government to help people understand in these other various portfolios about what your portfolio is going to be doing?
Yeah, there is. And at the various staff levels, there are workshops and other communications happening. And on our intranet site, there's a lot of talk. So it's an opportunity, I think, that over time more people can sort of get acquainted with. But again, you know, everybody in their job has a different level of interest in this, and a different way or level to which, or degree to which, they will participate in it. But I think part of it, like I say, is education, in the sense that the term may for some be concerning or scary. It may make people think, oh, what does this mean for my job, or what does this mean as a citizen? Well, what does that mean? I think we have a lot of work to do in educating people about the Government 2.0 initiative, open government, open data, and open information, and what those things mean, what they can expect. How do we do things? How is it that we're going to do things differently? How is it that they can engage with government differently, using the tools that they're using in their lives to communicate with their family, their friends, that they find convenient, but also to help them understand that it doesn't mean that they have to use these new tools if that's not their preferred method, that we still have 1-800 numbers, and we still have offices, and we still have people you can go and speak to. So I think that we have to help people understand what all of the options are in government, and that this is just adding to the way in which we can be more responsive to citizens.
How do you think that your work and effort on this behalf will impact the digital divide that it resides at every level of the community structure within our world today? And there are always the haves and the have-nots. There are always the technically savvy and the technically unsavvy. How is this work, or is this work, addressing that issue, and what are you doing about it?
Well, I'm not sure specifically how to answer that question. I don't know that the open government file alone is going to make a big difference there. I think what it does is provide, for those who wish to receive information this way, for those who wish to engage this way, for those who are tech savvy, for those who are data heads, this is us opening up our data, opening up our operation to the new ways of communicating, to the new opportunities. So, for example, the hackathon this weekend, we're saying, come join us, come use our data, come show us what you can do with this, and what you can tell us with this data. And I think that's exciting.
It is exciting.
It's not the only thing, though. And I think, you know, in small communities, you know, or my grandmother, for example, is not going to use a computer now to get her information from government, or to connect to government programs. I don't think that's what this means at all. And I don't think that this alone is going to mean that remote areas of the province are going to all of a sudden now, you know, have great service from government via the web. If they don't have access to the web, that's not going to be their preferred method for dealing with us. But I think that this also, it signals that we understand that this is a direction that the world is going in, that we need to take advantage of new technologies, that it provides us great opportunity to interact with more of our citizens, and have more collaborative approaches to policymaking and programming and just communicating.
Right. Well, one of the largest fears that, and one of the largest criticisms, frankly, of open government, when you talk to and listen to detractors of this movement around the world, they always seem to hide behind, and it's an important issue, don't get me wrong, but they always seem to hide behind the accuracy of the data you're releasing, privacy and security of that data. So what steps is your government taking in those areas to protect privacy of British Columbians, to protect the security and the integrity of the data itself?
Well, the data itself is, of course, data that doesn't have privacy implications and so on. The ministry is also responsible for BC's Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which is some of the strongest privacy legislation in the country. So certainly that is front and center in all of this. Being open and open government does not negate the need to respect people's privacy. It's front and center in everything we do. So I don't think that is for me, that isn't a concern in moving forward with open data, because government collects lots of data all the time on all sorts of things, from climate to population demographics, all sorts of things that are not personally identifiable. They don't relate to individuals in that way. They aren't financial information and so on. Government financial information is a different thing, and our public accounts are or have been made public through this process as well. So, what we're talking about, the kind of data we're talking about, is I don't foresee there being huge privacy concerns. If you're talking about the information and how the information may be used or misused, as I have also been asked the question, well, what if the data gets misinterpreted? Well, the data is available anyway. We're just making it available in formats that other people can use, and I think that that's what we want to do. We want the license to be open. We've done what we think is the best license in Canada, and we're hoping other provinces will follow. So I think, overall, we're leading on this file in Canada right now, from everything I have learned or am told. And I think that's great. I hope there'll be lots of take up on this on a national and from another provincial level, other provincial levels, other municipal levels. I think it's important that we move in this direction, and we're going to learn as we go.
Well, and that's a great point and an excellent point. I think using and working with data that's already available is often the misconception that you're opening and breaking out the vault of people's credit cards and numbers and stuff that you might have there, and that really isn't the kind of data that we're really typically talking about. It's stuff that is already available, but you are putting it in machine-readable formats so that developers can work with it and so on. And so that's an important point to note. It's also an important point to encourage other provinces across this country and territories and so on to take up the banner that you guys are leading with and work with you in a collaborative way to help them learn and accelerate their process. So thank you for making that point. Let's talk about, it's obviously important to maintain a strong relationship with local government. As a provincial government, you interface with municipalities, villages, towns all the time, counties. How is the open government movement within BC impacting the local government level at this point?
Well, we have, I think municipalities are also taking up the challenge at their own pace. Some municipalities have taken steps in this regard already. The City of Vancouver has a site. And I think we're going to work together and learn together as we move forward in this, as we are learning from other jurisdictions around the world. And I think embracing the concept and embracing the movement towards open government is what's important. And how we move along the path and learn and grow is going to be the exciting part.
What, in terms of, looking at this on a, say, 100,000-foot view, are you looking to break the system and replace it with a new one? Are you replacing old systems that have been in place, forever, it seems? Are you trying to fix the existing one or just replace it with citizens involved this time around?
I don't think the system's broken. I think what we've got is opportunity. That technology allows us to do things in different ways than we've been able to do in the past. And I think what we need to do is embrace that, find the best ways to do that. And I think it provides us new opportunities to do things in new ways. That doesn't mean the old ways have to go the way of the dodo bird. It means that we have new opportunities to enhance what we do in government.
Well, let's talk about the challenges internally. You've assumed the role as minister for this portfolio in March earlier this year, what have been some of your biggest challenges to date in terms of this space and what you do every day?
The biggest challenges to date, getting up to speed. There's so much all the time. There's so much to read. There's so much going on. Trying to keep up with the bloggers and the tweets and the what's going on in the UK and what's going on in Australia and Oregon. I think there's an unlimited amount of information out there, and trying to take from it and discern what's the most important in relation to British Columbia is the biggest challenge. And luckily, there's just a tremendous team at the ministry working on this, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Well, in fact, you know what? I've had David Hume, and I've on the David. I'm sure is still. I don't know. Is he still a part of your team today?
There. Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't spoken to him for a little while, so But no, I've had David on the show at different times over the months and years we've been doing work online like this, and certainly it's been an interesting process watching this whole situation evolve. Tell me about the Premier Clark, and her commitment to this, and her, and I don't want to have you put words in the mouth of the Premier here in this situation, but from your understanding of it, the open government mandate as she perceives it, could you help people understand that better?
Well, I think it's pretty much what I stated at the beginning. The Premier, during her leadership bid in British Columbia, made a commitment to open government, and she delivered on that promise with her announcement of this ministry, and then more fruitfully with the launch of our open data site and open information site and new gov.bc.ca site. And certainly she's been walking the walk with the open town halls and talking about public engagement strategies on issues that we're working on going forward. So I think, her commitment is really deep to this. I think she's as excited about the opportunities as I am in this, and we are working as fast as we can to roll it out for British Columbia.
So you mentioned the hackathon that's coming up this Saturday, and I know that's an important event for you. And if people want to know more about this, they can go to blog.data.gov.bc.ca, and they can learn more about the Data BC's first ever hackathon. This is in the thread of the type of events like app competitions, and I know your province has already had your first app competition with respect to climate. But let's talk about sustainability going beyond that. It's great to get a bunch of folks in a room and start working with data and create new and interesting things, and not all of it is relevant and some of it will be. But what is your plan for sustaining these kinds of things going forward in terms of the new? Now, I know it's not specifically your role to make sure that every application is a thriving success. That's not the way this is designed. But sustainability is an incredibly important thing. It's not enough just to hold an application or an app contest or a hackathon. It's without having an understanding of where we want to go. So thinking of sustainability going forward, what are your thoughts there? Well, I think,
we're still building that. We're still building the opportunities for the future. But I think that this first hackathon is our opportunity to engage with the community of folks that are really interested in open data and say, we really want to know from you what you can do with this data, what's missing, what you'd like to see. Can you bring us new opportunities and new ideas that we can partner and act on? I think we need to start looking at big issues that face governments, whether that be municipal, provincial, federal. We need to look at the big issues facing our communities in new ways. And this gives us an opportunity to do that. And I think that moving forward, we'll look for all sorts of opportunities to continue to connect with the community, connect with individual citizens on taking ideas and moving them forward.
Talking about big issues and delving into that a bit more, what would you say are the big issues that you're currently thinking about tackling, that you're hearing from residents in BC? What would some of those issues be?
You know, I think there are so many big issues facing British Columbia, and similar to other jurisdictions. We've seen the biggest economic challenges of our time recently, and governments are still grappling to deal with the effects of that. So we have issues related to how dollars get spent in provinces and in cities, and where are the priorities. We have issues related to moving forward with technology and ensuring that people have access to technology. How do we better do that? So I think, you know, there's no shortage of ideas, and I'd hate to put any ministries on the spot in terms of how they're going to engage with the public on the issues that are specific to their areas of expertise. But I think that we're going to start to see that there are a lot of creative minds outside of government, and that to tackle problems, we need to engage the hearts, the souls, and the minds of the smartest people, regardless of where they live, to tackle these problems and create the creative solutions, the innovative solutions that may lead us to better solutions to the problems going forward.
Okay, speaking to those people that you'd mentioned earlier, and of course we have, and I'd like again to thank everyone watching from around the world, but speaking to those folks who are contemplating, they currently do not have a counterpart to you in your portfolio in their province, their town, their country. What are some words of encouragement to them to get them thinking about this, to get these leaders, you know, getting over the risk aversion to opening government in their area? What are some of the words that you would pass on to them?
Well, I think, what would I pass on? I think we're seeing a great response to what we're doing, and by no means are we done, and by no means is it perfect. But we're seeing a great response to our willingness to look at this and move forward. So I think the governments should take a look at it and see what they can do, because I think there's tremendous opportunity to build on each other's experiences, to build on the expertise that's evolving, and frankly, the world and technology is changing at such a rapid pace that the old ways of doing business are just not going to cut it going forward.
Well, let's talk about a little bit more on in terms of the old ways of doing business and new ideas, and maybe, in fact, in this regard, my next comment here is not such a new idea, but it is in this part of the world. Let's talk about participatory budgeting and your thoughts on it, and are there any plans to start bringing in a open style of budgeting on projects and or provincially? Are there any thoughts on participatory budgeting going forward?
I can't say that we've discussed that yet here, but I think, you know, I saw that Mayor Nenshi in Calgary had done an app related to the budget process in Calgary this year. So I think, you know, there are jurisdictions that have taken this sort of thing on that we can start looking at what they've done, looking at whether or not it's an opportunity for British Columbia or whether there's a version of it that is. But certainly at this time, that hasn't been something we've got on the table to move forward right away.
Well, you know, it's often confused with a process that where leaders and or let's say people within administration view participatory budgeting, as a removal of their authority, or, you know, taking it right out of their hands. They no longer have any role sitting on council anymore, that they're not going to have a say in their own budget. And that's really not the case, at least not how I interpret it anyways. But rather it's a process by which, you know, citizens can say, hey, listen, you know, rather than just saying off the cuff, I want my dollars spent on snow removal, it is actually a formulated and nailed down process by which citizens can engage directly in how the budget is formed. Now, at a discussionary level, I mean, this becomes interesting. But of course, then it gets brought back inside and finalized and polished, and people in Treasury can make their final work on it. But so, is that how you would see it possibly moving forward within your government once that discussion got started?
Yeah, I really can't say. I think it's an interesting opportunity to explore. I think that the more information people have, the more they can take away and perhaps understand the challenges that face government and how it impacts them in terms of their taxation. So I think there's always that disconnect in the public between the tax dollars that they put forward and how those tax dollars get spent. So there's always kind of this idea that government has a money tree somewhere. So I think that that could be an exciting opportunity to expand the sharing of information and the discussion of issues, for sure.
So 2 final questions before we wrap up, Minister, and we let you get on with the rest of your busy day. The first question is, let's talk about the biggest aha moment you've had in the job thus far since March. What's that biggest sort of light bulb moment you've had? Said, "Wow, that's cool," or something happened there that clicked, and you said, "Yeah, this is something we got to get behind."
I think for me, the biggest aha moment was actually in a conversation with David Eves.
David?
David, yes.
We're going to give airtime to David. I mean, the guy, he shows up everywhere. It's unbelievable. No, that's fine.
But it really was. It really was. We were having a conversation about the opportunities in open government and the opportunities for open data and what can we do with data. And, I think I hadn't even thought about all of the potential opportunities. And David brought up some really, really great ideas, things that really I could see impacting people's lives in a way that saved them time or saved them money. So I think it was an aha moment for me in terms of why we need to move ahead with open data and why we need to really help create a community around it in British Columbia.
Well, you know what? That doesn't surprise me at all. David is a tremendous guy, and he's a smart guy, and he knows a lot about what he's talking about. I've had opportunities to speak at the same events as David, and also, have a tasty beverage with him as well, and exchange ideas. And so, one of the things that I find that is the biggest issue, of course, and I think you probably found the same thing, is getting a word in edgewise once David gets really rolling.
I can pull my own.
But so the final question I have for you is, if you're a citizen living in British Columbia or a citizen of the world anywhere, how can the citizens now help you do this job better, more efficiently, faster, whatever? What sort of steps would you like citizens to take to help you get this thing really rolling down the road even further than it already is?
I think first off, or the easiest thing for people to do is, now that it's there, go and look at it. Go check it out, in terms of the open data and open information sites, our website. And tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you'd like to see. Tell us what's not there, what's missing. I think that's really important. If people aren't engaged in using it, then it's going to be hard for us to know what we need to do to make it valuable for citizens.
Minister, thank you so very much for being on Gov2 TV today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you joined us late, we've been speaking with the Honourable Minister of Labour, Citizen Services and Open Government from the beautiful province of British Columbia, Stephanie Cadieux. Minister Cadieux, thank you again so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time that you've taken to speak with us here today.
Walter, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Gov2 TV. We're going to be back on the air every Thursday at approximately this time. And if you've missed us live, you can certainly go to YouTube and search Fused Logic. And on our YouTube channel, past episodes will be there. Certainly, we're going to have this episode up fairly quickly so that folks can take a look at it. And I want to say a wonderful hello to our friends in Australia, down in Brazil, and of course throughout the U.S. and Canada. And thank you especially from the group from Quebec that's watching us today. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.